So yesterday I did this piece in a sort of body of work that I've been doing. These mixed media pieces on paper, mostly from this sketchbook, and I'm going to do another one today. I started this earlier with some collage pieces. This is from a magazine, so more glossy paper, and then we got a newspaper, and this is some house paint on paper, which I have then cut up and used as collage material. Again, sticking with these arch shapes, seeing as that's a motif that seems to be going on. And I'm thinking today I want to start with some watercolours, particularly this very nice orange. And I'm just now squeezing some slightly more high-end paint onto the paper, straight from the tube, in a contrasting colour, this really nice blue. And I'm gonna let that work its way in. I want to keep this area nice and blue, seeing as it's really gone green down there. I've been thinking a lot about what these artworks could represent, because as I've said a few times before, I find that with these abstract works that I do, I tend to just start and be spontaneous, thinking in terms of abstract shapes and colours and form and line and all of that, and the material, like it's a sketch or an experiment rather than an artwork. But then, while I'm working, I see representations of reality within what I've put down. And I've been thinking about what this sort of body of work I'm doing at the moment could be. I mean, it could be a lot of things. Recently I was talking to someone about how you should use your artworks, your sculptures, your paintings, your mixed medias, no matter how abstract they are, and try and make them work as set pieces, because that's something I'm interested in, is set design and set painting, you know, scenic art. And I think these works can definitely apply to that sort of way of thinking. But in terms of what's going on just as an artwork, obviously the archways are a theme. So I've been thinking a lot about architecture, and I filmed recently a video where I'm sorting through some collage fodder, and in the process of that video I discovered that quite a lot of the images I've been pulling out had a lot to do with architecture and buildings and spaces. And so I'm thinking this body of work can start to evolve into something exploring that space, and you know, paying particular attention to how they develop a relationship with my other artworks. For example, my 3 burning buildings sort of triptych or collection, 3 pieces which I worked on in the same approach, and I've mentioned them in a previous video as well, I think. Whether it got released or not I don't know, but I can see this interest in buildings has been around for a while, but it's just taken me until now to notice it. So I'm thinking that these artworks could have relevance to that idea. And I was talking actually to the same person who suggested I think about my artworks in terms of, you know, stages and set pieces. Not think about them so much, but see how they could work in a sort of manner that the set designs do. Could they work as sketches, or how would these look if they were 3D pieces on a stage? Anyway, I was talking to this artist and he said I mean, we both said that, you know, architecture, sculpture, 2D art, works on paper, painting, whatever, they're all looking at the same things in essence, and they are all based on the same fundamentals of art, which is they're all focused on line, they're all focused on form and space, and how objects interact with each other and form relationships with each other. It's all about, I mean, art is all about the relationships between things. And that's definitely what I'm trying to do here, whilst regaining some sense of spontaneity and play in these works. I am also thinking about the relationships between elements, and after I have applied each new element to the piece, I then take a step back, even if it's just for a moment, and look at it and go, what does this need? Or how would that look? Which is how I came upon these black lines that I've been doing. As I went, how can I add to this? I want to use some paint. Because I've been working with the watercolour, and I thought, well, I think there needs to be some more darks, but I don't want to paint over sections, really. So how about I could do some dark lines like this? Art is very much a dialogue or a conversation between the elements. And certainly what I'm interested in currently with my work is exploring space and form. And a big part of that is interactions of elements with each other within the space of the composition and the space that we create and the space of this canvas. I mean, the whole thing is a space. Looking around at the other artworks I've created, they all use these, as I mentioned in the last video, they all use these cheap printer paper images of trees and leaves that I've taken in my own photos, and so I'm thinking let's add some green foliage in here. I don't want the green to be too strong, so I'm gonna cut them out, but let's add some of that in there. It's interesting to see how these works have evolved, because I created these because I just wanted to make something on paper, and then it evolved from this idea of working with these materials, working in this way. Then I started thinking more deeply about the relationships between stuff and why I was doing what I was doing, the intentions behind things. And now I'm thinking about how these works can begin to form a collective meaning rather than just an individual one. But what I do quite like about art like this, which I make, is that they can have multiple meanings. You know, there's no one set objective truth to what these mean, and if I were to exhibit them, I could exhibit them 10 times over in any way that I wanted, and all of them, in my opinion, would be correct. All of them would also be wrong, but that's up to anyone who decides to come and see, not me. This is another example of where I'm thinking about how I've applied something. I was going to just put these down randomly, but I've decided to keep this line of the paper, this line of the black going, with this line, this sharp angular mark, which has been made by adding the piece of collage into the mix, which is something Jane Davies does quite a lot. Is she looks at the things which she's got on the page, and she will then add to them with other shapes, and rather than thinking about it as covering up what she's already got, she's thinking of adding to it, because she is creating new shapes and new spaces by adding this over the top. Like, we've got this semicircle here, but if I were to do that, now we've got something that's not a semicircle, but we've got that shape there. I think that's very interesting. It's a very interesting way to work. I'm thinking it needs some more darks, but it also needs some more texture. Try and press the collage back into the background, make it feel more unified. I've decided to bring this wash all the way over through the composition, and it has really changed everything. It's really changed the colours and the whole mood, and everything feels a lot more unified. I think the last thing I want to do to it this evening in this session, though it's not done, I'm not sure what I'll do to it, probably for a while. I want to add some highlights, because I've just dimmed everything down quite a lot. So I'm just adding some white lines with this gel pen.